want to put it on fire or not? Okay, let me use this one on two.
On the same place? Like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to the annual Driehaus Prize lecture. This year, the Driehaus Prize celebrated the accomplishments of two architects, Marc and Notre Breitman-Jakov, Paris-based architects known for improving cities through their urbanist architecture. Native of Belgium, Notre Breitman-Jakov attended the École de Camp in Brussels, receiving degrees in both architecture and urban planning. Marc Breitman was born in Paris and received his architecture degree from the École des Beaux-Arts. Together, the two formed Breitman and Breitman, the architecture and urban planning studio in 1989. Projects range from residences, schools, hotels, commercial blocks to entire neighborhoods and cities. In contrast to the current conventions of flawed experimentation in public housing, Breitman's work stands out for its beauty and dignity. The public-private partnerships in which the Breitmans have engaged show the power of public officials to transform cities by carefully selecting architects and urban planners who are sensitive to the needs of citizens who experience the built environment on a daily basis. The work of the Breitmans promises something more than mere fulfillment of a program brief. Their work engages the full range of the city's typological spectrum, from urbanism, architecture, and construction, that becomes a stage set upon which life unfolds. Their work brings people from a wide spectrum of demographic backgrounds together in the public realm of the streets and other public spaces. The Driehaus Prize is awarded by the School of Architecture to Marc and Notre Breitman-Jakov of Paris for their outstanding achievements in introducing large public housing developments in France and Holland to the grace of classical architecture, to human scale, and to proportion, creating a sense of place as well as urban security and civic welfare. Many suburbs and new towns created in the past 70 years have gained notoriety for their reliance on consumption and waste, with their exclusive dependence on automobiles and need for massive amounts of energy. In addition, the poor designs of public housing projects have resulted in a monumental social failure, both in the United States and abroad. By contrast, social housing projects and civic buildings designed by Marc and Notre under identical economic and political conditions as other contemporaries have been extraordinarily successful with residences, users, developers, and public officials. The radical redevelopment of Plessis-Robinson, a notorious working-class neighborhood, was realized under extremely difficult political conditions. With the Breitmans as principal architects, a neglected neighborhood of large-scale housing blocks with few civic and commercial spaces was transformed into a thriving and proud community. Splendid new avenues, squares, and boulevards and parks are now lined with beautiful street facades and with a focus on elegant public buildings. The same successes were seen in the Breitman's remarkable transformation of the coal mining settlements of the Pas-de-Calais in the mid-1990s, using the regional vernacular architecture, changing the soulless mass housing into inviting and livable urban quarters and villages. Similarly, in Amsterdam, the Breitmans seamlessly integrated the large new Hagia Sophia Mosque and surrounding terrace buildings with the social and urban fabric of the Dutch capital city, completing and enriching in a monotonous suburban location and skyline. Here, the Breitmans have created an architecture that seamlessly unifies the horizontal proportions of distinct modern surrounding buildings into the more vertically based proportions of traditional Amsterdam. To make the transformation complete, the Breitmans employ several languages in multiple buildings that celebrate the contributions of modernism and modernity to the vernacular and monumental. The Hagia Sophia Mosque itself is a beautiful object that is offset from the dominant geometries of the site, but linked to the city grid with a colonnade that parallels the canal. With its elegant proportions of walls, openings, and roofs, the building both stitches itself to the adjacent fabric and sets itself apart with a change in scale through the monumental arches that support its graceful dome. Modern and traditional materials are skillfully integrated into one composition that celebrates unity and differentiation simultaneously. The Amsterdam project, much of the Breitman's work, is a product of public-private partnership, a symbol of how the modern world can embrace tradition and how tradition embraces modernity. This project could never have been realized in such a manner at any other time. In a democratic culture, meeting the needs of long-standing residents, as well as recent arrivals, is facilitated by linking the secular and religious elements of the city in an embrace, thus reflecting the values of tolerance and diversity. Like so many of the Breitman successes, the triumph of this project mirrors the aspiration of the modern world to become more inclusive, more just, and more beautiful than ever before. The weaving of these narratives is a remarkable emblem of success. Please join me in welcoming our 2018 Driehaus Prize laureates, Notre, Breitman-Jakov, and Marc.
Dear Michael, you have just made the presentation of our work. We are finished. Very happy to be with you. Dear Michael and dear friend of University of Notre Dame, Marc and I are very happy to be with you this afternoon. We are grateful for your investment in the new classical architecture, as well as the extraordinary award, the Driehaus Prize. Thank you for your friendship and your support. It's a wonderful moment in our professional life. I would like to talk about our work in our professional journey in two parts. First, I will present the general philosophy of our work and an overview of our project that have been a milestone in our work and that have contributed to our architectural style that has become our signature. Then Marc will present in detail the project in Amsterdam, which is one of our major project, which is the mosque and the new district of Piri-Reis in Holland. And since it's not so easy to read and to show a slideshow and to read and to speak in English, I will speak without my paper. So if you don't understand something, you can whistle or shout or hands up. But I will try to be clear. So our goal in our work is to offer a city for everyone, and to finish with all those suburbs and dramatic architecture who is destroying slowly the cities in Europe, maybe also in America. So we consider, a priori, oui. Hein.
Everybody have? Hearing?
This, he has to cut anytime.
No. Everybody is hearing what she's saying?
Yeah, don't worry. Otherwise, they would say it.
But they look so polite.
Okay, may I talk? So, in two parts, because I will be very quick now, because you will not sit like that very long. So, the city is in our meaning, the city is not an object nor a collection of objects. You can imagine if you see all those. It starts like that. Okay. Those collection of objects, those architecture with not making the city. Sometimes if you have a street, you can have an accident like this one, which is something unpolite, but you have the street. If you make only a city with those type of architecture, you have not a communication. It's not possible. So the city is a way of solidarity and conviviality. So when it's a city with blocks and different common building, it's possible. When it's blocks isolated, the city is spread out. Paris, for example, Paris is a huge city and in an horizontal city. It's a characteristic. And all those cities in Europe are their own characteristic. For example, London is not Paris, Brussels is not Rome, and all cities are in their wall a sign of their culture. So as you see, Paris is more classical and more composed, but because in the history, it was a political form. Even the king and different things who are drawing the city. In Rome, it's more Baroque, but they are the characteristic of those cities. Here in Paris, we don't love so much the historic center for their beauty or for the community. This is the street when we have our office. The office is over there. And it's 150 years in between those two slides. The one and the second is the evolution is quite inexistent. But in the beginning, it was maybe in the Middle Age, a Coventry probably there. Then they make the street. In the 19th century, they were full of hotel, furnished hotel, and the people. And now we have in our office, it was a shop before, now it's our office of architecture. So the strongness of the historic city is capacity of renewing and transform it on itself. But we have to see that slowly all the center city were difficult for everybody. It's become a rich country, a place where everyone cannot find his place. And we saw the suburb appears around the city behind the wall. So here it's in Avignon, for example, and this suburb is another image of the city. This city was coming from this type of city growing around our historic center, is coming directly from the modern movement and the Le Corbusier, who found in the street all the worst thing in the life. It's difficult to live. The city was historic city was too complex, and they want to make a big revolution called the tabula rasa, and they start to build those type of city clean with green trees and wealthy and sunny. All this at the beginning, slowly it was, you see, slowly it was even, it's like that today, a bit worse in the statement. And this type of city has slowly begun to be stigmatized people because in the unit they repeat the unit all the time. That's what we call in this drawing the dolly architecture, which is a repetition of all the same model. People cannot identify themselves anymore in the city, nor in the way, in the place where they are living. So you see the repetition here, it's near Lyon. It's make the life not unpersonalized. And sometimes you have the obligation to, when you make the tabula rasa, to make invention again and to invent something new. So here it's the tour nuage, the cloud towers, you know, and the windows are like yeah, the windows are like, you know, drops, and the facade are like being in the cloud. This is the end of the invention, I guess, in architecture. And the construction becomes more and more bizarre. You know, here in Clichy, I mean, to live over here can be unsafe. And here, this is a new way of building with plants on the facade. So the plants is now vertical, no more horizontal, which is logic. And they put it on the facade. And those things became more and more strange. And but all over in the France. This is in Strasbourg, for example. This is in the canal, in the industrial zone. They make an office on the old part. And well, so faced to this situation, there are different solutions. The first one would be, of course, the total destruction, but this is not so easy all the time. This is at La Courneuve. La Courneuve, it was terrible. So they destroyed a large part of the city and start to rebuild it now. But after the reconstruction is not so happy also. But and some part is you see this building is like trying to be a bit more identified, but it's still in the same way of making bar, low construction, and things like that. So this is in our profession now. This is one of our projects, not this one, of course, but they suggest in Arras, in the north of France, this type of housing, which is in the 60s, and they have to renew it because they couldn't. You can't demolish everything and all the building because they are mortgaged. There are people inside. It's not so easy to make it disappear. So with the new law to make it more economic in an ecological way, they need to be isolated. We make a study about this project. You know, it's a classical age plan. With this is the tower, and then here is the lower building, age one, to take them back to cities. So we make sequences. It's isolate. You have to isolate it by put isolation on the facade, and then we coat them. And we try to give a new rhythm and sequences in the way of seeing the bar, which was uniform before, and to treat the pignon of this tower with a painting, and to put sequences in the rebuild. So the same building after our renewing the building. With we then with coating, and we put elements on the facade to make it coming back to the humanity. So with the scale of the men. So we make a composition with a basement and then with cornice and an attic. All is code. The windows are changed, and we change the color of the different sequences, so it looks like to be a street again. And the elements like that, like this cornice, here is an underbossage, and then a new cornice, and the big one at the attic. And all the space, outside space, are now private with the fences and the garden, and the people who are, this is social housing, of course, they didn't recognize their own habitation house when they came back because they were inside, but with the scaffolding, they didn't see nothing. So when we finished the work, they couldn't believe that it was their own habitation. Another solution is now a mix of renewing bars and make new construction inside and extension. In Alençon, it's in Normandy. This is a district where very poor people are staying, and it's a social housing, of course. And our project was partly to renew the bars and partly to build a new part of the city. So this mixity makes that the people who are living inside the bar met a new population coming in the new buildings. And it renew all the links in between people also. So this is the bar before, you see, and it's one cornice straight. And when we make the renewing, it's just here. You see, we just make sequences like in a normal street. Sometimes we change the highness of the cornice. Here we put some bossage, and this makes that we can get the image of the dimension of the building. So we have scales. It gives some scales of the vision and the different stages. And here, you see it's open. Now there is a fence and it's a privacy. So the space becomes private and the public is on the sidewalk, and all the building change the image, and the isolation makes that it's more ecologic and economy of energy and sustainability. But this is the new part of the same. Here was a bar before, in front the bar we renew, and in front it was a bar, they destroy it, and we make a little part of the city with this place, which is a place where the people are meeting and there is a new link and exchange in between all the people and inhabitants. Also, always the same for a little arcade. It's very economical. This is social housing. So we always make a significant angle, for example, and a balcony, and this is a little fountain. And the people are now sitting with the bench. So the life changed totally in this district. And it's still a poor population. It's all a very low social housing. And a part of is a bit further, it's more private. I mean, a very short part of those apartments are private. In Seville, also, it was a project more recent where it was a big competition. Actually, this Seville is on the way from Paris to Versailles. It's a city of the neighborhood of Paris. And it was crossed by the road. It was an old road from the Louis XIV, but it was still the road when we went there before the project. We go in, we go out. We didn't mention where is the center. There were no center. And the competition the goal was to create a new center, and the block was already given for the competition. And here we make the plaza, the Grand Place. We redraw, and partly it's half and half social housing and private housing, and always a mixity of function. So now it's the place instead of the school who was there, with the market here, and offices, And there are private housing here, there are social housing, everything is mixed. And the life now in Chaville, they have their own center of the city and a place to meet, to have markets, open markets, and fiestas. There is another view of the market, and the treatment of the architecture is including always. It's not very. It's even if it's the private housing, it's for the people who are just going out of the house, social housing. It's not for rich people. Also, it's for the middle class actually when it's private housing. So we have no big budget to build. And that's why we have to use coating more than stone. We cannot have stone; it's too expensive. And we work on all those modern nature, different elements, which are in the very light materials, and we read through with those big arcades. And here is the market, and here are the offices. And when it's private housing, also we have balconies and outside spaces, and we treat them like a new room, but outside, not a balcony where everybody can see you, but it's a closed loggia like that, and c'est l'élément de façade. This is another view of Chaville with social housing. In Reims, the subject was on the people at Sick Champagne place on the cave. They were moving outside, and so it was a real block which was free for new project. And so we keep the old house of the paper Hetzig and the boulevard here, the entry, and we propose a street in the spirit of the villa in Paris, like a private street, not a street where you go in with cars. And here with the Rue des Coutures, it's the whole block like that. You can come here and go out here. It's like that. This is the entry of the villa. It's so a private street, and all those here. Mostly it was not a social houses. It was a private one, with always a public space and always a place to meet and a place to have link in between people who are staying in those residences. And always it was planted. So this is a part of a building in front of the boulevard. So it's like the entry or the signal of the quartier, with all those loggias and balconies, and always the same composition of the facade, with the bossage and the soubassement here, then the main part and the attic, and with different things. But the most important project we had around Paris was, of course, the reconstruction of Le Plessis-Robinson. It was one of the first projects, and the Quartier du Bois des Vallées, it's called, appears here. It was occupied by those baraquements, it's blocks which are a school, a high school, provisoire. So they have to move in the new building here, and so there were all this. The block was free for a reconstruction. So this project starts. It's about 600 apartments, but it starts with the first street, and it was the first street rebuilt after the Second World War in the Plessis-Robinson. The mayor changed, the political administration changed in 1989, and then the new mayor, the president of the city hall, decided to change the image of the city. It was only bars and a dormitory city around Paris, and he wants to change the city and make it more mixed with function and architecture. So this block, it took about 10 years to finish the whole thing, and we have a different developer on it, but we make all the architecture. This is an equipment for a mental disease a person, and here it's all mixed. And we had the first big award in this project for the mixity in between social and private housing. It was given by the Séminaire de l'Art Urbain, which was linked to the Ministry of Housing, which is a nice award we have received. So you see, that's the new district instead of the baraquement of the high school before. Here was the equipment for the mental disease. And there was a main pedestrian way here, and here it was for with cars going here. And it was for partly of those housing was for les gendarmes, not the policemen, but the gendarmes. So they were, and this is a housing, social housing. Ça, c'est le quartier du Bois des Vallées. This was one of the first. So you see the street. This is the first street, la rue du Bois des Vallées. This is the second street built. This is all social housing. This is more private with a different balcony and every single every has its own identity. One is with those loggia, the other one has a loggia on the backside. Here you have a fronton, but you have always sequences and the feeling of the street. It's not more uniform. It's each one can say if you come home, it's with the red door, with the fronton, or you have character elements who can identify your own house. In Le Plessis-Robinson, the first district, district we have done with le quartier du Bois des Vallées. The second phase was to rebuild the center of the city. Actually, in the 89, it was a soccer place that was a center. The city hall is there. This is a school we renew after. You will see also the project. And all this was free. There were nothing to destruct, but the project was attacked in the beginning by some association who were against the project of the center of the city. I don't know, and so it takes a little time to make it out, but we succeed. So this is the general plan of the school here was not yet renewed, so it's not like that now. But we redraw all this part of the center of the city, and the city hall is over here, with a round place, with street places and different activities inside. This was the Cœur de Ville. It was in the beginning. The first plan, the city hall asked Françoise Poëri to make a first drawing. He gave the first spirit of this center, and then in the second time we do this part also of the master plan. So it's in place of the soccer ground, you have now all this city with always you see the mark of the city is all those sequences and the possibility of integrated all the mixity of function and mixity of social level. So you see here the ground was going down very hardly. So we have those streets going down with all those on the parcellaire and the bossage, the loggia here, but the windows, all those elements are always composed in the same way with the base, the soubassement, the principal part, and the attics. The attics are sometimes like that, or sometimes only with offices. And this is a huge center with commerce and activities. This was the school I told you. It was on the master plan beside the city hall, and we renewed this school, keeping a part of the school of the year 30s, as for the main room for the salle des fêtes, and it becomes a sports center here. And this is the old part we keep, and the new part is there. This is the new part. So the Préau, which is the place, the central place of the school, this is a part of the year 30. This is the new part, and we make the connection of the two places with this glass roof. And on the street, it's the element like that for the new school. And the third phase for the Plessis-Robinson, because it's different phase, so the Bois des Vallées, then the center of the city, the cœur de ville, and then the Cité Jardin is more residential with garden and a huge landscape project. And here is the Résidence Palladio we have done with all those loggia, and it's in the new district, in the new part, which is developing now in Plessis-Robinson. That's another project also with commercial. It's the high part of the city, and with mixity also of housing and activities. In the north of France, the coal miner cities, we have, in parallel with the Plessis-Robinson, we had the opportunity to help people here when they closed the mine. They finished with the charcoal in the 1990. The only thing where after the industrial activity was the superstructure. Means the house and the industrial houses. So, as you see, all these cities were always linked to the mine. You go straight from your house to the mine and back home. When we have to go to think about how to renew this and how to change the image of the city, or only lead on a work into a city in relationship with the town, and the town of Rouet, where the city hall is over there somewhere, and the mine was here. So we have to think about this plan, which is very repetitive also, and very strong. The bars is endless bar. We try to make blocks again, and to turn. If the mine was here it's we make a main place, a round place with apartment, which is a new typology, but mostly in the reconstruction of the city, the coal mine city, was to make blocks, and to make a block with the typology of house, because they are very attached to their house, the mine and the family of the miner, because they have a garden, they have a home with a small piece rooms, but it was their house. So we keep the idea of house, but we make with blocks, and we have to put a new element with la maison d'angle, the angle, the corner house, to make blocks, to make those bars could turn. So this is the place which is the opening of the new district after the mine. So it's apartment, a new population, but always we use local materials. In north of France, it's bricks, and we use bricks and coating to change the image of the city, but also the house, the system of the individual house and the corner house, because this is important to turn and to make blocks, and to give another dimension than only work, but it's housing and work. And all we draw some small fountains, and so equipment more urban, and we do it at another scale, you see. And that's why here you see all corner houses are more different, but with all the detail of the traditional architecture from the north. Here you see the old habitation with all in bricks and the repetition of the same model in front of this one with around a space we create. And so it make a plaza. So instead of just one street with all the same house, we add an avenue, a park, a small place, and different public spaces to make it as a district corner. The same in the Courrières, which is a coal miner city also. After, when we succeed with Bruay-la-Bussière, the project before, we have been asked in different places of the north of France to make renewing. And Courrières has no, you see, the old church from the 15th century, and there was halls and just few houses, and also a school which was destroyed. Yeah, it was a school, but it was those parcels of ground without only gardens, and the block was enormous. Yeah, here is the church, and so we have the opportunity to go inside and to make an interaction of this enormous block. And we make a plaza for the market and for commercial. And here the housing, all with individual houses, only individual houses, but each different, never like it was before with only one line of the cornice, but we changed with the garage because now they need to have a garage, and colors, and sometimes all in bricks, and sometimes with coating, and each house is different. And the people are now very happy to have still a house, but their own house, they can identify. So that's for Courrières. With this sculpture was before along a street. We put it on the main place here with the bench and the equipment here. It's a sports hall, and so people are and activities also, and the marketplace and all these streets are quite new, and all the houses are like that, different, with always the bricks. In Blandec, also in the north of France, so still it's near a church and with the city hall, and they need to have more. So we make a place more preserved, like that, with an arch to go in. So because the street is passing in front of this arch, and then you go in like in a private street with the make it to keep the preservation of the site, which was very historic. Here you see all those houses, always all individual houses for one family. And here we have also two houses or three houses, I don't remember, in the axis and the composition, always with detail, a lot of detail in coating, because the coating is a very poor material. So if you don't work with it, like making a bossage, like making the bossage, yeah, or making a detail, pas de moineau, which is a very traditional North detail. You cannot give this atmosphere of richness of the architecture, of the popular architecture. So now I will pass the think time to give leave Marc talk about the other project in Amsterdam, because he was patiently not cutting me off. No, you have no choice. So I will give you the choice to talk. Tiens. Ça, tu l'as accroché. Fais-toi. Tu l'as accroché.
C'est quoi? Les deux. Les deux. Okay. I propose you 5 minutes of boring, where I give you, I explain in a bad way, but neither I explain you in a good one. And after, especially for Michael, because he was so enthusiastic about the project of Amsterdam, and he went alone and he saw so many things I discovered after he explained me what was the sense of the project, that I will propose you to tell you all the story of this project, but not reading only in a bad English, because this project is really iconic of our history of projects, in the sense that Nada presents you Plessis Robinson, he presents you north of France. We have built a lot in the north of France. And you will see that the explanation, the reason why they choose us is very, very strange. And with the Amsterdam project, you will understand that the work of an architect could be fantastic, could be also nothing, because you need a lot of chance to have the chance to realize what you want to do. Are you ready? So, architecture is inseparable from urban culture. It's part of a city DNA. DNA. It was born in the first cities that were built in Mesopotamia and Egypt and flourished in ancient Greek and Roman culture. We can measure this intimate relationship between architecture and city. In medieval church and cathedral, in the castle of the Renaissance, in Baroque composition, in school, bank, and new department store of the 19th century, each one of those buildings match with the urbanism which they belong. So architecture is born, therefore, with the city. That's the reason why we take our inspiration from the age-old relationship that has developed over a century. And it's also why we advocate the idea that architecture today has to be an urbanist architecture. Somebody will be shocked. We don't speak about traditional or classical architecture, because if you said traditional or classical architecture in France, you are dead. So we've tried to find a new expression, a new way to say it. Not saying classical, or because you look reactionnaire, you look from, fascist, if you said classic. So we have to find a new lexical way to present what you do in this school, what we do in France. I don't know in America, but in France, you need to find new words. And the word we propose you is urbanist architecture. And urbanist architecture is inspired by cities, traditional cities. Not because of age, but for its ability to create urban spaces, streets, plaza, square, galleries, prime area of the city. Urbanist architecture is an architecture of continuity with our cultural school, with our cultural, social, formal, and urban context. It's opposed suburban architecture, which is a form of architecture that split and divide, and that follows the dictatorship of modernism, of the novelty at any price, and that create not urban space, but just motley collection of incongruous objects. And you saw on the Nada's part, those stupid buildings looking like accidents. Urbanist architecture is a responsible form of economic, social, and cultural development. That's Léon who said it, Léon Krier. Suburb architecture, on the other hand, is a perverted form. Urbanist architecture, so the architecture we want to do, is also sustainable. And now I'm speaking about what happened in France, but maybe it will be the same in the States. In France, sustainable today has gotten stuck with the definition and meaning of yesterday utopias. The very strange idea to invent countryside town, la ville à la campagne, haunted the industrial era of the 20th century. You remember garden cities, unité d'habitation, all those things who finish badly today. This dream live on as a concept of eco-neighborhood. We call it like that in France. Do you call it like that here? Eco-neighborhood? No? Eco-quartier. Ecologic quartier. That produce in architecture grass-covered walls. You have it here? Rooftop garden. Solar panel with nature reduced to a few leaves of salad. Do you have this? Yeah. We have even come up with the concept, and I'm very serious, of a green tower. I mean, a tower of 200 meters high, only with green on the facade. This is more than recycling the old the old technological and anti-urban dreams of the 20th century. This is these old dreams of hygienists with their trifecta of sun, space, and greenery. Yet, the answer to sustainable are right in front of us. It's the model of the historical city. In its capacity to be transformed through times, in its economy of space, in its density, in the mixity of function that it allows, the old city is absolutely a sustainable, the more sustainable example we can find. In addition, historic city with their many layers are the palimpsest of our collective memory. It's the enduring body of our human community. I translate it alone, this. So maybe, is it comprehensive? Yes? In their own sustainable development, cities have adapted, been modified and transformed without losing their dignity. In bracket, you said in bracket, in parentheses? Modernist architecture cannot endure the change that's come over time. Can you imagine the transformation? A guy who buys a house of Le Corbusier and who decides to put a corniche on the path. There is only one guy who can do that, is Léon. So, in sun, space, green areas, coming from the theory of the 20th century, we oppose a new interpretation of the Vitruvian trilogy. Finistas, utilitas, venustas. Finistas means solidity and permanence. That means robustness, deep wall, vertical windows, cellar, and roof, real roof, no cantilever, all those things that you find in the traditional architecture. Utilitas, that means convenience and the ability to transform in order to respond to today's rapid change in economic, cultural, and social data. Because every day, the time goes quicker, and every day, our architecture has to be transformed, to adapt itself. And utilitas means make an architecture who can be transformed everywhere. Nada explained that our studio office is on the medieval part of Saint-Germain-des-Prés in Paris. We are architects, we are traveling over the world, we are living in a very in a medieval space. We are able to receive us with all the techniques, and this is capacity of transformation. Venustas, beauty and harmony. About beauty, How many times you heard, I mean you, me too, but you, beauty is subjective. Everyone has his own vision. Everyone has his own interpretation of beauty. Did you hear this? Do you think that? No. At the end, the guy was a woman who said that to you, said, what is beauty for you? And I propose you a good answer. If you don't know what is beauty, then I cannot do anything for you. Because everybody knows what is beauty. I never met a guy coming back from Venice saying it's ugly. So it don't mean that there is not only Venice, also the castle of France or the beautiful architecture you find in America. When it is beautiful, everybody knows. Everybody knows. Come back to Venustas. It's the image of our community. And we know that proportion and rhythm brings happiness. Ugliness brings despair. In conclusion, in this intimate relationship between the city and architecture, there should be one rule: to favor urban unity, the idea of a city over an isolated masterpiece. And what I saw in your studios today is exactly what we think. You begin by making a part of a city, and you think about how to do the building inside the urban city you draw. So it's absolutely perfect and marvelous for us. Architecture is not a monumental sculpture, not a formal display. It's not a pure work of art, a regressive vision resulting from the aesthetic of the 19th century. This sentence is only for the modernist, because they think that being modern, making a super art building is very modern. But no, it's not. It's an aesthetic vision from the 19th and beginning of the 20th century. So I think that architecture is very much. It contributes to the shaping of the collective memory that will unify and bring together our communities. And normally here, I begin to tell you the story about Amsterdam School, of Amsterdam Mosque. Do I have the time? So, 20 years ago, 20 years ago, Nada? A bit more than 20 years ago, we were in Amsterdam at the inauguration of a little project done by Rob Creer, on which we had built 5 or 6 houses, little house. And we are on this inauguration, a glass of wine in the hand, and I'm speaking with the client. And at the moment I'm going to drink, there is 2 women coming, and who said to me, you are Mr. Breitman? I said, yes. We have constituted a little group of all the person who lives in your house, in the house you draw, a little club. Could you give us some copies of your drawings for our archives? I was surprised, but more surprised was the client, who said, whoa, these architects are able to make a fan for his architecture. What I'm telling you is absolutely real. So he said to me, I will call him Frank, because we begin after friends. And his name is Frank Badendijk. And Frank tell me, so the client tell me, Monsieur Breitman, could you stay a little more? Because the mayor of the city will come, and we have a big problem in the center of Amsterdam, and maybe you can help us. We said, yes, okay. We will see the mayor. It was 20 years, more than 20 years, so I was younger and quite impressed. I'm waiting for the mayor. The mayor arrived, and said to me, we have a Turkish community who are propriétaires, owner of a big part of Amsterdam area, and they want to build an Islamic center. In Europe, build an Islamic center is not a good idea for the European people. There is conflict between Muslim and you have to think that we are in Amsterdam, in a city which is Protestant, very Protestant, Catholic, but very Protestant. So the idea to have an Islamic center is not, they are not so happy. So the city said to the Turkish, we don't want your project. But the Turkish are owner of the ground, which is very rare because in Amsterdam, all the area is from the state because they took the water out, so, and the polder and everything. So there is a few parts of the city where you can be owner of the ground, but normally you are not owner of the ground. And when you are owner of the ground, you can do what you want, more or less. So the city was not able to say no to the Turkish, and the Turkish people, the community, could not say, could know that they will have problem discussing with the city. Do you understand me? Frank, the client, who is one of the most important social housing director of Amsterdam, is a powerful man. And he has been proposed to make the negotiation between the city and the Turkish. So now you have more or less the situation. And we are the architect. We don't speak Turkish. We don't speak Dutch. And we speak a very good English, as you can see. So I came back to Paris, and with Nada, we drew a first little esquisse. Where is it? So this is the place of a big fabric, which are the Turkish owner. And you have to imagine that they pray inside this industrial space underground, so in a very bad condition. You have to know that you have this big stick. We call it bar. How do you call that?
Slab.
Slab. You have this big slab. And here, there is a little deformation, you see? It will be important to the story. So we are with Nada at home, in the office, and we think, what can we do? Because the real problem was not to build social housing and a mosque as you do social housing and, I don't know, and a church. The problem is that you are inside a new city for us. We don't know as well as Paris, for example. And we have to resolve the problem of integration of the mosque and the social housing, because as you can see, we are in the center of Amsterdam. This is the old part of Amsterdam. You see, those are the very famous, beautiful canal of the 16th century, and we are just there, which is the extension of Berlage architect. No? How I do for changing the photo? So, problem is integration of all this project inside a very, very structural space from Berlage, along the canal. So this is the fabric. And first, what we have done, we went to see how Amsterdam is organized. Because we know that integration is not enough, it's not only color of the architecture, materials, bricks. You can use materials and color of the architecture of the site. You are not sure that you will integrate your project. You can do something very ugly. What means integration in this case? It means integration inside the city, respecting the organizations, le rapport, the relationship between typology and morphology, urban morphology. So very quickly, we decide that we will do a place, a square, along the canal. And next, so you have to imagine that the negotiation was taking a plane at 7 o'clock on the afternoon, PM, arriving in Amsterdam at 9, secret meetings between the Turkish, his face like this, and the Dutch people, blonde. They speak together. You do not understand anything about, because they speak a bad English as mine. So, and the Turkish, they speak also in English, but it's also bad. And everyone was discussing about, on a drawing we have done during the week of, like this, a little drawing. Their obsession was how many square meters they use for the mosque, and how square meters for the Islamic center, how many square meters for the housing. Our problem was how to integrate everything. So very quickly, we proposed to make a square. We saw that in Amsterdam, the church are very often isolated in the middle of the square, like in the north of Europe. And I said to Frank, client, we can make a square, but the square must be traversé. You must cross it. So I said to him, I saw that there is a little house here, which is not the same as all this and all that. Maybe we could destroy it and make a passage. And the week after, he buys a house. No, it's really incroyable. He buys a house, and we have the passage. And the second problem was that the mosque looked to the east, and the canal is a stupid canal. It is not directly parallel to the east. So, as Michael explained, we have to resolve the problem of alignement. Okay, as you say, and direction of the mosque. And we are sure that in that case, we can hope that integration is possible because we respect the urban organization of the city. Result is this one. You can say Werk. So this is the canal. Comment on fait? Là, le canal. You see the passage of the street, and this repetitive architecture you will see after, and the mosque with the double direction of the street and the east from the Kaaba, direction to the Kaaba. Another problem was that we have in front of us Turkish people. Turkish people don't have the same mosque as Tunisian people. There is a lot of variant typology. So the real problem was, are we as good as Sinan? You know Sinan? On this, I'm not so sure. But he didn't have the same problem we have now in his period. But so we study Sinan architecture and the way he have done the Turkish mosque, because it was the only answer that made pleasure to the Turkish, that Turkish people community could accept, really be happy with. On this, I have a little story. There is an interview from a journalist in Amsterdam. We are in a beautiful hotel. And the guy said to me, Monsieur Breitman, as an architect, as Breitman, did you get a problem doing the mosque, drawing the mosque? I said, yes, a lot. One of those is that in the European architecture, when you make a cupola, you have a lanterno up who gives you the impression you feel the cupola inside. If there is no lanterno, you don't see the cupola. It's very special, but the real reason of a lanterno upstairs the cupola is that the light gives you the impression, you understand that you are under a cupola. You take off the lanterno, you don't see the roof of the cupola. And I explained this, and the guy said, no, no, no. And I thought that I was very clever to explain this to the... And I thought it was very interesting because that explained all the design in the Turkish mosque you have on the cupola to give them, to restitute the cupola inside. If not, you don't feel it. And the guy said, no, 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 I'm not interested in this. No, no, real problem. At the end, I understood that his problem was that I said that I have a problem making a mosque, Breitman mosque. And he was homosexual. And I said to him, have you a problem to speak with me as homosexual? So after all the newspaper didn't say anything about this relationship between our name and the Islamic mosque. So, here you see one of the models we have done, and you can understand that everything is, there is a very strong relationship between city and building. For example, this is on the axis of the street. This follows a river. The mosque is oriented towards the east, and the housing are inspired by classicism architecture, which is not the style of the area. This is, the type of architecture there is on this part, which is a 1930 architecture, 1930. Well, I do not defend this, but when you are in an area like this, where people have lived, where they have their parents who lived, the children have been in school, you cannot say you are living in a horrible city, I'm going to destroy everything. That's not possible. And if you look at it with attention, you will see that it is not so badly composed. It's not our style, it's not, but not badly composed. So we have also to answer to this if we want to be integrated. So you could ask me about what is the rapport between classical and this. When we are in contact in this project with this architecture, we use more or less the same vocabulary. We make a stop and we begin another story, because all the projects we have done since the beginning, and Nada show you, they are an answer to one problem, which is a problem we are in front now. But it's also, we want also that the project open a new story, that it is not closed when we have finished our project. With our project, you can follow another story. You are counting a new story. So we draw this type of architecture, which is not the Amsterdam architecture, which is done with, how do you call this house with the front? A pignon house, the maison à pignon. Gable house. In Amsterdam, the houses in the center are gable houses. And we didn't use this. We use some, we think that classical architecture is a very good answer to make le lien, to make link with many different vocabulary. More than a picturesque answer that could be a gable houses. This is not real. It is without the mosque. Here you see with the mosque, you see the passage, you know, there. And on your left, the houses, existing houses, and the project we have done to make with the passage. So we use the vocabulary of the 30s to make the continuity on the street. Because more important is continuity. More important is continuity. And that's the reason. So I'm quite proud about this architecture because, well, we use another language. It's like if we have speak good English during a few seconds. For the rest, color, detailing are inspired from the Amsterdam school architecture, I would say. You have to think that it is social housing. So it's very unusual to see that, even for the Dutch people. Dutch people who were quite against the project. We have a lot of critics, and we were not very much loved. We love to be loved, but it was not the case. So this is the construction of the buildings. And for the mosque, we have done, Nada wants me to present this little drawing. That was the first drawing we have done for the mosque at the beginning, for the first meeting. We came with a little aquarelle. And next, we propose many variants. We understood that the Turkish want a Turkish mosque, and that the mosque has been built. You see the detailing of the roof. If we take off this, you don't see the cupola. The problem was yes, this is terrible. This is not our mosque. Huh? This is drawings we have taken from books because there was a part of the Amsterdam collectivity who don't want we to build a minaret. It's like if you said you can't build a church, but you don't build a campanile. It's quite difficult. So we have done these drawings to explain the importance with many mathematical calcul, you know. You see here it's 51 degrees, 60 degrees. And we have a very huge meeting in Amsterdam. And I explain in English that 51 degrees was a problem, but maybe 62 will be better, etc., which is what was no sense, only to make the minaret, because the problem was the minaret. So if you have a problem, you explain it with numbers like a technical. You see? Integrated inside the city, you see, oh, merde, pardon. Sorry. You see, this is existing buildings. That's here begin our project. So we give the end to the historical buildings were there, and next we change to be classical. But as you see, it's a mosque. Donc the typology of a mosque in a European city is something particular. But at the end, the fact that it is on the line, that it respects the volumetry of the city, there is a square, etc., integrating it into the city. This is a real photo. Now we don't know if it is real or this is a cupola in construction. But as you see, you don't feel the cupola really. If you are inside, you see the windows. Well, is it? Yeah. Bon, pas grave. You see those windows, who gives the impression that it is a vault, but you don't feel really the cupola. The gallery and the minaret. What we love very much is those little marble elements, like little star in the. And from each part of the building, you have urban view. More or less as this morning when I was visiting the future building you are building for your school, from the windows, you have the impression that you are inside the city. You have an urban view from, you see, there is something, it's success. When you have this impression to be in an urban space, it's a success. You see the different geometry of the gallery. I'm not going to boring you more. Here you see the building we rebuilt, a new one, which is in the same family of this one, more or less. With some detailing. What is very important is to know that today, very often people said to you, well, the constructors are not able to build those type of buildings, and it is absolutely wrong. The architects don't know to draw those type of buildings, but the constructor knows how to do it. And the guy who put the bricks are very good. In France, and I'm sure I saw this morning workers, they do plaster, it's fantastic. So the real problem is on architecture, not on the other profession. Even in concrete, they are able to do this. And this is a little homage for Notre Dame, who offer us this beautiful montage. It's only papers who make in proportion. I will conclude in this. Do you know what is the most beautiful compliment we had about this project in Amsterdam? They call it the West Mosque. Well, for you, it does not represent nothing, and for me too. But I heard that they call the old cathedral of Amsterdam the East Kerke. East Kerke. So the Notre Dame de Paris in Amsterdam, the East Kerke, is the most important church. Is called the East Kerke, and they call our mosque the West Mosque. That could not be a best compliment. And after that, after so many wars with Amsterdam people, I have people who on a restaurant came to me and said that I was a dangerous guy because I was building a building for Turkish, and it was not acceptable. I asked the guy, but what do you do in your life? He said, I'm architect and I'm building jails. But this is the level of our modernist architecture, more or less. So another best success was that at the end, in the most important newspaper of Amsterdam, they said, Nada, they said about this project, why it is so irresistible. For a Turkish mosque in our time, not so bad. Thank you very much. No question.
Maybe. The faculty can ask what we want.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, so what is the reception now after the project has been kind of built and has started weathering? Are people still resisting? Is there still a very strong negative feeling?
No, no, as I tell you, they said why it is so irresistible, so why do we like it so much? But also,
the same people who were so critical
yes,
all the time for 20 years, anytime, and at the end, you see, fantastic.
but except you in America, Notre Dame, Driehaus, it's a project on which there is a very huge silence. You in the newspaper in France, they spoke about the fact of the mosque, but more because our origin was not Muslim, but that was the interest. But about the architecture and the project and the urban space, nothing.
Has the project been published in Turkey, or what is the Turkish plan? What did they like it? Did they think, or did they welcome it?
This is another story, because what I didn't tell you is that, as you understand, the client was Frank. The Turkish give the place, the site, with the money of the housing built by Frank. We built the mosque, and we built the mosque for the Turkish. So we have negotiation with the Turkish about the typology, the organization of the church, of the mosque. And the negotiation at the beginning was with Turkish people who were normal, I would say, not aggressive, not Islamist. There was Muslim, but as you are Catholic, so they were liberal, I would say. So the negotiation was perfect. But the association of the Turkish has vote in every 3 or 4 years. And they elected an Islamic guy at the head of the new association. So at the end of the drawings, not of the project, the drawings, when we finished the drawings and we were to begin the work, the Islamic new association makes problems. They stole our drawings, and they give us the foot in the. So we said with Nada, okay, you can do what you want, but you don't touch my drawings. They are mine. I've done it for this. I built it, or you don't touch it. So begin a very huge fight between the Turkish people and us, because they want our drawings, but putting us outside. At the end, there was a judgment. It go to the court. We have to go to the court, like in an American film, the young architects in front of terrible guys who are on the back looking at you like that. I will kill you. Okay. And we win. Surprise, we win. Because in Europe, when you make a drawing, you are the artistic owner of the art. And begin a negotiation with the Turkish, and at the end, we accept that they build the building, but they have to respect everything. And they have done it absolutely perfectly, but without us. They have built the building with all the detailing we have done. When we make a project, we make all the detailing. In France, it's not so current. In America, I think you do a lot of but we are on your school. So we design everything, even the button of the door and everything. And they have done everything perfectly, better than if I was directing the site or nada, but in a fantastic way. So that's the result. But they don't speak, they don't want, they speak about in Turkey, I don't know what happens about this most, but in Europe, nobody spoke about it. And they don't speak about it, not because of us, but because of classicism. Because it's not, if you make a mosque who seems like aircraft accident, you have a chance to be published.
No, but they publish it quite fast.
Yes, they publish it, but not
Did
so
you
much.
submit the project to the AGAC awards of architecture? Because I was surprised this would be really a project.
No, we are very bad.
This is typically a project they would really consider for awards.
It's a good idea. Absolutely. But we are very bad. We have very bad communication.
I know, it's not a question, just when I went to the mosque and pushed the door open and walked in, I was greeted by a member of the group who was very suspicious of me at first. I was American, and, what am I doing there? But after a while, he warmed up, and it was clear that he was very proud of his work. People around him were also very proud. But you could also feel that they didn't want to brag about it, because if they bragged about it, they might call attention. But I think it was it's a great source of, at least for the community, from the little glimpse that I got into it, great source of pride in the Turkish community. But it also sounds there was a great deal of pride in Dutch people. When they see it, they feel the sense of tolerance in Dutch culture is indicated by this project. Even though hostilities may have happened, it's still, when it's all said and done, everyone is kind of friendly.
You are absolutely right on this. And it's what it is absolutely incredible too is you have social housing around. Social housing but in Holland you can buy social housing. It's different than in France. You can buy social housing, and it was for the Turkish people, for the Turkish community. But at the end, it's principally Dutch people who buy it, and Dutch from origin. I mean, yes. So it's a real success. No, I mean no publication. I think it's very rare to find in Europe a mosque in the middle of a capital. So if I was a journalist of architecture, of art, I will have done something about it. No? Because even if it is, I was not the architect. I'm a journalist. I want to make, I will have done something, but nothing, silent, except you. That's fantastic. There is a real war in Europe about classicism against modernism. I don't know if it is the same here in America. Because American people live in classical architecture, no? I saw arriving from the airport a lot of beautiful little houses with columns in wood. Traditional, so there is a tradition, a classical tradition in America. I'm wrong? Or
No, you're right.
you work on towers, ugly towers, but you live in beautiful little houses. I love those students because you are absolutely the same as a Frenchman. Do you have questions?
Thank you. It's amazing work. Are you guys working on anything right now that you can tell us about possibly? Is there any future projects on the desks at home?
Yes. Yes, we are living a very incredible moment now in France because everybody is crying and we have a lot of proposal of project, but it takes a long time. And now it begins by urban spaces. What you do here, and Nada, you confirm what we have saw today visiting your class, different classes, is absolutely what we have to do in Rio. We have a very huge area, and they ask us to make a proposal of organization, urban organization, and then we have to build. I don't know if it is the same in America, but in France, political power is very strong. So the real decision is from the mayor. And there is a few mayors around Paris, for example, who are fanatic about classical architecture. The problem is that there is a lot of architects who think that they are classical and who do a terrible architecture, which is more dangerous than the modernist one, in my point of view, because it destroys making bad detailing. It seems that they got bad words on the one who smell no good in the mouth. So they don't know how to make windows. They don't know how to make cornices. So and there are the friends who work with us on big areas. So you have. Now I show you photos on which I was able to recognize our project, but there was a lot of other projects I ate who want to be classical and who are not, because there is no education about this. Your university is one of the only one in the world who do who are forming classical architects. This is fantastic. So we have a lot of work for very good classical architects. And we have a lot of work, and I think that maybe it will be interesting that knowing with your professor the classical architecture, the way to design classical architecture, you confront it with the modern way of building. Because you can be more economic than modernist. You are more economic than modernist and more beautiful. But you need to make this relationship between them, as it is here. So still, yes. Palladio at the end used bad material to make the impression that it was stone and etc., but it was bricks and stucco. You could be the new Palladio's architects of the world.
Just a detailed question about the mosque, the arcade. I'd like to know more about the geometry of the arches, which is not semicircular. Describe what is the origin of the curve.
I don't remember.
Oh.
You mean like this?
Yes. For example, on the screen, you see the arcade. The arches appear to be not quite circular, not quite parabolic.
It's a compromise.
Yes.
Yes. It's a compromise. It is an arc brisé. How do you say it?
Pointed arc.
Ogival. Yes.
Like a coffin.
Yes, but the effect is different because you have a key. The key. Yes. So it's curious, but it is one of the points of the problem. If you make ogival, normal ogival, Arabic one,
Yes.
it looks very strange in Europe. So we could have done. We hesitate a lot, making plein cintre. Maybe, but we thought that it was not so bad to make it a little not perfect as a plein cintre, not a neoclassical architecture.
I wasn't being critical, I was curious what.
No, but your question is very clever because it is one of the points. There is a lot of things we have done, which are not classical, néoclassique, in the term of, l'arc en plein cintre, the window with un arc aussi en plein cintre. Everything is a little half and half.
Yes.
But the Turkish find it, understand it, and the other don't see, except you. You see upstairs with the window, you see it here.
Thank you.
I was just curious, was the decision of the client have one minaret, or how did that happen?
The decision there was no decision. There was the idea that we don't want any minaret. So it was not a decision, it was a negotiation. We put only one. It's okay for you? Okay. But yes. No, you are laughing, but
One but none.
I'm in private. I will tell you who was against the minaret. But we are in surrealistic situation because people don't have arguments. They have arguments, but not very. There is something they don't want, so they find stupid arguments to fight against the project. But on stupid arguments, you cannot find. You have no. What could you oppose except a joke like, the angle of or one minaret instead of two?
But they are not. They cannot clean and make the call for the prayer. That's the problem.
Oh, they're not.
They cannot use it.
They cannot use it.
And I have to recognize that I prefer one than two, because it's more like a company. And so it works better with the city of Amsterdam.
Did you run into, Holland now is one of the countries, so Holland has this tradition of tolerance and of diversity, but there's also one of the countries where the extreme right movement,
Yes.
immigration is very strong. And they had one exponent actually who was very successful also. Did you run into any of these kind of problems with that population who are anti-Islamic and?
Lucien, you have to think that we are Nada and me. We have a project. We love the idea. We take the project. Everyone is coming. We kill him and we go down. We go. So we didn't have any contact with those. But effectively, Holland is not anymore a country of liberty and openness. There is in Europe there is, as you know, a lot of bad situation like fascist groups, even in Germany now.
When we have done that project, we were not involved with the Turkish association. The contract was with the social housing company, which is one of the strongest in Poland. It was a contract with 110 apartments, commerce, offices, and a mosque in the list. Finished. So we were not in contact with all the associations.
Yes, I was. No.
After they come, yeah.
No.
They
were not the clients. No, but
Lucien
Lucien said about the situation, political situation. The political situation. We don't care. I think it is very important that people, what type of prayer they have to do, they have the right to do it in the city. It's not acceptable to have people who make the prayer underground in a garage. So the idea to build a mosque in the middle of a square, in the center of Amsterdam, I think it's a generous, noble, and there is a way to do it. There is a way to practice our religion. There is a way to, and our business if we can, I can speak like in a real American, our business is to succeed in the relationship between communities à travers l'architecture, with the architecture. And I don't care about the bad Turkish guy who want to kill us at the end, or the good ones, or the middle ones. We have done this because we think that it is important that those people, women, men, little boys, can go to the mosque in the middle of the square, like there is an expression we say mensch, like mensch. No?
Well, we have a reception next door and in the lobby. So thank you very much.